All right, we are back. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody had a great weekend. I watched a lot of boxing this weekend, some Saturday afternoon boxing in Saudi Arabia. Went to a club show in Boston on Saturday night. Still love going to those club shows, Sergio. I can't get enough of them. I'm sure you didn't love fighting on them back in your day. Maybe you did, actually. Maybe you did like fighting on club shows. But I always find the action on club shows to often be considerably better sometimes than the action on the quote-unquote major shows that some promoters put on. So I got to see a good club show in Boston. Kid named Anthony Vieira looked good on that club show. Saw Cordell Booker. Remember Cordell Booker? Fought Sebastian Fundores last time out. He got a win over Patrick Olate, someone else we're familiar with who lost to Jaime Munguia. Those two guys fighting on a club show in Boston. So that was my weekend, Sergio. What about you?
Debauchery, Chris Mannix. Debauchery and a lot of let's not get into that. But anyway, yeah, I wish I could have gone with you to the club shows because my life is turmoil right now.
Were you just about to get deep? Were you just about to go deep with the podcast audience?
Hey, listen, I wish I can go take it back to those club shows. I know what you're talking about because club shows is where the hunger's at, man. We only get paid $500 a fight, and that's where your bones are made, man. You're actually, learning the vibe of the crowd. You're learning what it is about the boxing business, and then you sometimes fight tougher fights than expected, so you don't know. You're making your bones in those 4 and 6 round club shows, man, and it takes it back, man. People like you as fans enjoy them. People like me and the boxer that went through them, it's like, yeah, they were great looking back, but you don't get paid much in those shows and you bleed.
No, it's a rite of passage, right? Like, right. A lot of these guys fighting on club shows hope to one day get to a world level, but a lot of these guys are never going to fight on the world level. They're just going to be, domestic area fighters, regional fighters. I know that the Massachusetts championship in multiple weight classes was on the line at this show I was at on Saturday. So it's a lot of fun to watch. And I encourage people all the time. If you want to see fun boxing at a low price, go to a club show in your area. There's a ton of them.
What state was that?
I just said the Massachusetts state title.
Latinos have a hard. Well, this Latino has a hard time saying that word. My Latin tongue won't let me say
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts. I don't know. I emphasize it. CHEU. Chew. Yeah, whatever. I can't say it.
Okay, all right.
That's part of the problem being Latino, man. But I speak 2 languages. That's a good part.
That's true. You can speak 2 languages. I can't speak. One of my great regrets in life is not learning Spanish early on. What I could have used it for in the current profession that I'm in would be a valuable language to know. All right. We're going to talk about a bigger show that happened on Saturday, and that was the card over in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, headlined by Moses Itauma, who knocked out Dillian Whyte in the first round of their heavyweight matchup. And Sergio, we're going to begin there because you said on Friday that if Moses Itauma blew out Dillian Whyte in the same way he's been blowing out the guys he has over the last couple of years, you would buy in to the hype that has surrounded Moses Itauma. Well, he did that and then some. Took him a little under 2 minutes to dispatch Dillian Whyte, who up until that point had only been stopped by world title holders or would-be world title holders as well. Your thoughts on Itauma's performance, and are you a believer now that this kid, 20 years old, is the future of the heavyweight division?
Look, I was a believer. I loved what I saw with only a dozen fights under his resume and the way he was knocking out fighters. I just thought it was premature praise comparing him to Mike Tyson simply because of the age, the ambition, the power, and the first round knockouts. But now I'm more than a believer. I'm a fan, and I really do think he's the next coming of something special. And I respect the Mike Tyson comparisons now because I did a little bit of studying. You say I never study and research. I did a little bit of studying and research for this one. There's a lot of comparisons with Mike Tyson. Not only the first round knockouts. I believe Mike Tyson had 9 out of his first 13 in the first round. Moses Itauma has 8 first-round knockouts in 13 fights. Of course, the 20 years old and being young and fighting everybody. But the thing about Itauma is he's already beating world title challengers at only a dozen fights. Marius Vach was one of them, and now Dillian Whyte. Mike Tyson wasn't doing it until his 17th pro fight when he fought Jesse Ferguson. And then from there, 1986 was when everyone knew about Mike Tyson and all eyes were on him. I believe he fought like over 10 times in that year. That was his come-out year, 1986. So I see that with Moses Itauma now. I see the power. I see the speed. He's very smart. He's not just he's a lot different than Mike Tyson. I mean, there's comparisons, but they fight totally different. Mike Tyson had a fight as a 5'10" and a half, 5'11" maybe at most. But he had to use his upper body. He had to fight small. He had to be explosive. He had to He's the only fighter, one of the only fighters that was actually successful fighting square, because he could fight you from the orthodox stance, or he could turn right-handed. And he was very adept at doing that, and he got away with it because he was so short, compact, and explosive. Itauma doesn't do that. He has footwork. He fights. He's a hybrid of a lot of great things, man. And I love what I'm watching, but it's not just power. It's not just speed. It's not just punch selection. It's his IQ, the way he doesn't smother his attack. And what was the punch that I told you was going to finish the job?
The hook. You did. The hook.
He had the right hook, man. I may have been wrong with calling the over for
a little bit,
but I told
a little bit off.
Right hook. I told you it was going to be that right hook, man, because look, I didn't think he was going to knock him out under 4, because Tyson Fury couldn't do that. I mean, Povetkin couldn't do that. Whoever fought him couldn't do that. But this young kid did it, and he did it sensationally, man. I just got to praise him, got to give him his flowers. I think he's the next coming to something special. If it ain't Mike Tyson, I see the comparisons now, but if it's not him, it's the next something to something special in the UK.
You're right about fighting differently than Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, that, like you said, that kind of herky-jerky left to right movement. He's getting inside. He's throwing those power shots. Moses Itauma is a more classical boxer and beats you with footwork, with speed, with technique. He is the full package. And he's not small either. You saw him in the ring, 6'4", a little bit over 6'4". So he's got good size for this weight class. And you mentioned the intelligence. Like, he's a smart kid, and he's got real smart people working with him. Like, Ben Davison had a game plan for that fight, and you heard Itauma in his post-fight interview saying, like, everything that Ben told me Dillian Whyte was going to do is exactly what he did. Like, I was able to figure him out within a minute of this fight. That was the kind of performance that wiped away a lot of the skeptics that might have been out there, who might have said, like, Dempsey McKeon, he's nothing. Some of these other guys that he's fought, they're nothing. Well, Dillian Whyte, even though he has long passed his best days, and I thought his body language, walking to the ring, getting in the ring, when he did that face-off, I remember just saying to myself when I was watching Whyte face off against Itauma there, in that seconds before the bell, he just didn't look like he wanted to be there. He just looked kind of out of it. He started off trying to land some punches, especially with that jab. But, we've seen Dillian Whyte, Sergio, take some good shots from the good punchers. He couldn't take anything from Moses Itauma. Once Moses Itauma hit him and hurt him, that last one kind of grazing right off the top of the head, Dillian Whyte was done. Regardless, though, that was exactly the kind of statement that Moses Itauma needed to make against exactly the right opponent to ultimately do it against. So I think that elevates Moses Itauma significantly in this division. That is a huge, huge win for that young man. Now, it's all about, like, what's that next test, right? Like, is there a test out there? He can't, Sergio, get out of the second round. This was the 9th straight fight that he has not gotten out of the second round. He's got to get some rounds in against somebody. Is there anybody out there outside of the one guy that we'll talk about in a moment, Alexander Usyk, who is the king of the heavyweight division? But is there anybody out there that you think can take Itauma into the middle part, forget the end, the middle stage of a fight?
Yeah, Joseph Parker, but I still think that's a little bit too early for Itauma. Believe it or not, Joseph Parker is an excellent former champion, and he knows how to fight big men. He knows how to handle power. So I still think, no matter how talented Itauma is, I still think Parker's a little bit too much. But I'll throw another name at you. Hrgovic, Caballel, guys like that, that are in their 30s already, that have looked a little bit. They looked a little bit vulnerable. They're hittable. They got big power. They're big men. They're 6'5" plus. So Itauma was going to be right there, eye level with them, punching up at them. But I think those are the names that make a lot of sense, especially across the pond, where they're more popular and fighting more. But he mentioned Jermaine Franklin as well. Jermaine Franklin's a tricky boxer. You're bound to get a lot of rounds with guys like Joseph Parker and Jermaine Franklin. Those are two names that I'm positive he goes into the second half of the fight with.
I'm not so positive that Jermaine Franklin gets in the second half. I mean, Jermaine Franklin, who has not fought, as I'm looking at his box rec, since May of 2024 when he beat Devin Vargas. Before that, he was on that 2-fight losing streak where he did go the distance with Dillian. He did go the distance with Anthony Joshua. But he is how old at this point? 30-something? Doesn't say here, but got to be in his 30s.
Well, all these fighters are Caballel, Hrgovic,
Well, let me give you my kind of take on those. I think, look, Filip Hrgovic is represented by Keith Conley, your guy. I think Keith Conley is more likely to put Filip Hrgovic in a fight on the moon than he is putting Hrgovic in with Moses Itauma. We're going to get to Hrgovic and how he looked in a minute, but I don't see that fight being put together. If you're Joe Parker and you're the interim champion with the WBO, your entire focus right now is on getting that fight with Usyk. We saw the reports over the week that Usyk asked for an extension. If I'm Parker, I give him that extension. I wait because I want that opportunity to become the undisputed champion at heavyweight and not have to mess with Moses Itauma. The right fight, I think, for Itauma is the winner of a fight next month, and that's the fight we got between Jarrell Miller and Michael Hunter. Miller and Hunter, both durable guys, right? Like, Miller's been stopped once, but he was grossly out of shape in that fight against Dave Dubois. Michael Hunter's proven he can face heavy punchers. He knocked out Martin Bakole. He went to a draw with Alexander Povetkin. Like, that winner of that fight is a great opponent. And I think that's an opponent that would be willing to fight Moses Itauma because neither one of those guys really is in line for that Usyk shot, that Usyk payday, or really has the kind of runway to wait for it. Like, they need to take a risk and fight someone like Itauma. So if I'm Frank Warren at Queensberry, I'm looking straight at that weekday fight. What is it? Thursday week fight of the Crawford-Canelo card, where you've got Miller against Hunter. The winner of that fight would be a great opponent. I mean, if it's Jarrell Miller, we know what he can do. Big, durable, throws a ton of punches. Michael Hunter has not gotten a lot of opportunities, kind of bizarrely, over the years, but he knocked out Martin Bakole, and Martin Bakole had a real training camp. Like, he knocked out Martin Bakole for real when Bakole was younger, and the blemishes on his record are against high-level guys. The loss to Usyk, the draw against Povetkin. I think either one of those guys would be a great fit. What do you think?
Michael Hunter is a spoiler. I think you should stay away from him. Why? If you're already this hot, if you're Moses Itauma, and they're doing a great job promoting him, so why are you going to throw him in? You can't duck
Michael Hunter though. Like, you can't avoid Michael Hunter. Like that.
Everyone else has. Why not Itauma?
Well, because Michael Hunter's like 36 years old, and if he gets a win over Jarrell Miller, he's going to have some visibility there, and it becomes a big fight. Like, if you're Itauma and you're 20, like, you can't be. And Frank Warren and everybody in Itauma's team, Ben Davison, they're not going to be leery of Michael Hunter. Like, I like Michael Hunter as a fighter.
And they should be.
Wow,
yes, they are, and they should be. I'd rather him go fight an Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois than a Michael Hunter.
Why would Anthony Joshua do that? Like, why would Daniel Dubois do that?
All I'm saying is, why would they fight a guy that's on the back foot, another Olympian in Hunter, someone that's faced great names? I mean, he went He went the distance with Usyk, I believe. He's given everybody hell. Michael Hunter can box, he can fight, he has an Olympic pedigree, and he just doesn't have the representation to get the big fights. But Michael Hunter's the goods, man. He's a champion without a world title. He's one of these fighters that's going to go down as one of these sad fighters that just was good enough to be a champion, but never got the opportunities to be a champion. Why the hell do you want to open up a door if you're Team Itauma for a guy like that? That no one else has been fighting. Everyone else has been avoiding him, but you at 13 fights wants to give him an opportunity? Slap yourself, Chris Mannix.
An opportunity? What are we talking about?
I usually give you credit with your matchmaking, but this time you're wrong.
He's 37 years old.
Doesn't matter,
and you're talking about avoiding him?
He has no wear and tear. Michael Hunter has no wear and tear. He's always in the gym. The guy's just relishing. He's salivating for an opportunity like this. No one's going to give it to him. He's that damn good. That guy is the type of guy that you just let go into the sunset and people forget about him. Michael Hunter is one of those
good.
guys.
Okay, that's good. But if Michael Hunter defeats Jarrell Miller, he is going to have more of a profile. That's going to happen during a big fight week. Jarrell Miller would be a big win. If Michael Hunter wins, I think you got to do it. If Jarrell Miller wins, I think it's a no-brainer because you can get Jarrell to talk during that fight week, to sell that fight.
I agree on the Miller one, Mannix. I agree on Big Baby Miller. He's always going to sell a fight, but he's been knocked out already, and he's unreliable. And the guy's failed so many damn PED tests, and they're going to keep giving him.
Look, if he has to, I get that. But if he actually goes through with this fight against Jarrell Miller after having gone through with that fight against Andy Ruiz, a fight that I thought he won, I think he has some marketability left to be squeezed out of him. So I think and both these guys, we're talking about mid to late 30s. I think it's to me, it's the perfect test. Like AJ, sure, I'd love to see that fight. Why would AJ do that?
Yeah,
Danny Dubois just got knocked out by Usyk.
Okay.
Why would Dubois do that?
Answer me this. Would Joseph Parker do it?
No,
Hrgovic?
not unless Joseph Parker would do it if Usyk vacated and he had to do it to win the title. Joseph Parker wants to win the heavyweight title. No, Hrgovic, in a million years, like I said, Keith Conley would launch him into orbit before putting him in Moses Itauma right now. Caballero fights everybody, but like, yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, I could see
These are the names. Those are the next step up names. They're big, stiff, strong guys with a name that you could sell in that part of the country, that part of the world. And it makes all the sense in the world because all these guys are highly ranked.
Well, I think Itauma needs to start fighting more over in the UK. We need to start building him up a fan base because that's a guy that's going to be a star for years to come. 20 years old and already looked at as the boogeyman in the heavyweight division. I like him a lot. I think having gone one round, you got to get him back out there before the end of the year. If there's another show in Saudi in December, which there may be, love to see him against the winner of Miller and against and Michael Hunter. I think that is a great fight. All right, the co-main event of that show was Nick Ball defending his 126-pound title against Sam Goodman. Pretty good fight. Sam Goodman was a 122-pounder who was supposed to fight Inoue, but didn't fight him because he got a cut above his eye. So he moves up in weight, challenges Nick Ball. Competitive rounds. Ball winds up winning a wide decision. But I got to say, I didn't walk away from that fight impressed by Nick Ball. I didn't think he would knock out Goodman because Goodman's undefeated and a good fighter. But I thought he'd win more convincingly. And I didn't think he did that. What were your thoughts on Nick Ball's performance?
We got to give credit to Goodman. He was that damn good. Excellent boxer. And one judge had a 115-113, Mannix. And I really think it was a close fight. The other two judges had it pretty wide.
18-10, I think. And
that was too wide, man. I think the two judges got it wrong. This was a very close and competitive fight. I think Goodman maybe even could have squeezed it out if this fight was anywhere else in the world. That's how competitive and close it was. Because look, you know me, I'm gonna pick out the guy that's doing a little bit more. He had the better defense. He had the better ring generalship. He was popping him with that jab. I'm talking about Goodman. Nick Ball looked a little flustered at times. You know, the thing that Ball was doing though, when Goodman was boxing really well in the middle of the ring, staying off the ropes, he would land one big shot. And sometimes those big punches like that will sway, 1 or 2 minutes of good boxing. Now, one big punch. So Nick Ball was doing that. But other than that, who was controlling the majority of the time of every round? I thought it was Goodman. And I thought His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh, I think he tweeted something about the performance of Goodman, because I think anybody that knows boxing and saw this fight, I mean, this was an undefeated kid that came in to shock the world, and he had a damn good performance. I just think he needed better judges that appreciated what these other two judges that I was talking about didn't see. Goodman made a name for himself. I hope he doesn't get discouraged, but all in all, I think Nick Ball's going to have a problem with movers. Anyone with fast feet, Ray Ford, one of them, and now Goodman. So watch out if you're team Nick Ball with guys that are good with defense, moving around the ring, and with explosiveness. Explosiveness comes from the lower body. And who's the most explosive puncher at 126, Chris Mannix? The monster.
Well, he's not at 126, but that's a different conversation. In a way, is the 122 undisputed champion.
If he goes up to 26.
The stats back up the argument that this was a closer fight than two of the judges had it scored. Goodman connected on 47% of his power punches. That's a big number. Ball did land 27 more power punches, but the accuracy edge goes to Sam Goodman. These fighters were separated by 6 or fewer landed punches in 8 of the 12 rounds. So every single one of these rounds, or at least 2/3 of them, were incredibly close. Goodman had a 91-48 edge in body punches landed. Ball, he outlanded Goodman 134 to 123 over the second half of the fight. So really competitive stats according to the numbers. Either way, it was, I thought Ball did enough to win, but I thought the 15-13 scorecard more reflected the competitiveness of the fight. Either way, wide, close, I just wasn't all that impressed. And, it seems to be this talk about an Inoue fight. It was talked about a lot on the broadcast. It was talked about a lot during fight week. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Like, to my knowledge, Inoue's got the next 12 months of his life planned out, right? Inoue is going to fight MJ Akhmadaliev in September. That's, a big fight. He's going to take another fight at 122 in December, presumably. I think that's going to be a Riyadh season event in Saudi. And then you get to May of next year, and it's the big one in Japan. It's Inoue versus Nakatani at 122 pounds. So I have not been given any indication that Inoue is looking to move up in weight anytime soon. So Ball's team may want the Inoue fight, but I don't think they're going to get the Inoue fight. And after a performance like that, I don't know why Inoue would look around and go like, yeah, let's take on Nick Ball. That's a lucrative fight for me to take. I think what Nick Ball's got to do over the next 6 to 12 months, he's got to collect these titles. And I feel like I've said this before on this podcast, but he's got to unify. Like, I don't know why he's not unifying right now. Like, there are 3 other title holders out there, and none of them are megastars. Like, Stephen Fulton is out there with a belt at 126. He was talking about moving up in weight to fight O'Shaquie Foster. I don't know what the status of that fight is right now. Rafael Espinoza is a champion. I would love to see Nick Ball against Rafael Espinoza. That is David versus Goliath. That is 6'1" Rafael Espinoza and 5'2" Nick Ball. Think about the optics of that fight. That's a great fight to make. Angelo Leo, another belt holder at 126. He's out there. Why are we not unifying? Why are these belts just being hung around 4 guys' waist? Why is there not a push to make unification fights in the 126-pound division? Nick Ball's best case to make for a fight against Naoya Inoue is to be a unified champion, to be a 3-belt champion, to be a 4-belt champion. And given the finances of it all, these should be relatively easy fights to make. Like, these are not big money fights, particularly if Riyadh gets involved and Turki Al-Sheikh gets involved. So if I'm, Frank Warren, the people around Nick Ball, forget Inoue. Inoue is a pipe dream right now. You got to be focused on unification fights. And I would start with Rafael Espinoza because that is an incredibly marketable fight worldwide.
I would make Nick Ball the underdog against all of them, maybe against Leo. The only one I would maybe make him out of experience a favorite, but Angelo Leo has that big power, man, and he's waiting for that opportunity. I like his punch selection. He has a great trainer in his corner. He doesn't have it easy, man. I mean, I'm not saying it's murderer's row, but if you're talking about these names, I mean, Stephen Fulton, I think, is great off the back foot. He's going to give him issues with that jab, with the experience that he has now on the biggest stage possible.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying
he's not going to have it easy, man.
I'm not saying any of it's easy, but you got to do it. You got to fight these guys. If you're going to get Inoue interested in fighting you, having 1 belt ain't going to do it. And going the distance with Sam Goodman ain't going to do it. You've got to at least have 2 belts around your waist before you make a call to Inoue.
No, you're right. And I just think it's tricky here. If you're a fighter like Nick Ball, he's at the cusp of becoming something special. He has that fan-friendly style. He has a lot of support in the UK, but he's one-dimensional. And we got to see that in the Ford fight a little bit, but he got that decision there. But against this fight, against the unheralded, determined fighter like Goodman, I wouldn't say he was exposed, but there's a way to beat a fighter like Nick Ball. Of course, I see it all the time. He just boxes his ears off, stay off the ropes, keep the fight in the middle of the ring. Don't exchange with him. Watch for that looping over top shot that Nick Ball likes to throw. He's a short, compact, strong fighter that if you move and keep giving him angles and don't stay in front of him, they're easy to box. They're easy to outbox. And I think more and more champions on the championship level at 126, they're seeing that with a one-dimensional fighter like Nick Ball. And yeah, he's going to have a hard time with all the names you just mentioned.
I mean, the alternative is what? Like, do another title defense against, like, Mirko Cuello, like, who is the interim title holder with the WBA, Elijah Pierce. I'm going down the WBA rankings.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing there. Like,
there's nothing there.
Look, it's not going to be a cash out if you fight like Espinoza or Leo.
No, it's a cash out if you wait. If you fight one of these unknown guys, say hometown fight. If you just wait for that monster payday, and by monster I mean Inoue. But yeah,
why would Inoue do that?
At least a year, right? You're gonna have to
what does Nick Ball have over some of these other champions? Like, why would Inoue look at Nick Ball as opposed to maybe like looking at Espinoza? Like Espinoza,
because Ball is undefeated. Ball has a following. Ball has a world championship,
too, isn't he?
And he has the perfect style that's tailor made for a fighter like Naoya Inoue, who's explosive, who has speed. He punches. I mean, he's just so fast with those punches, and he'll catch that aggression coming in halfway. Nick Ball doesn't stand a chance against the monster. I don't
know if Ball has quite the following that you're talking about. He's been fighting, his biggest fights have been over in Riyadh, and I don't know that he has some huge fan base that would make him more appealing than others. Also, Espinoza is also undefeated, 27-0, 23 knockouts, and he's got those 2 wins over Rabisi Ramirez, which are big time wins for him. So
I think Ball has a bigger following than Espinoza. That's all I'm saying.
I would agree with that. I'm just saying it's not like you're walking in with the Arturo Gatti of England or the UK. Like and look, Nick Ball remains the only UK male champion, which is wild.
And there you go. And look, that's the thing right there, Mannix. It's the fact that anytime you think about a British fighter, a fighter from the UK, you're always going to expect the following. These guys are so passionate supporting their own. And because there's not that many champions that are international, that are known by everyone around the world, I'm not saying Nick Ball is, but whenever you don't have that many champions to support, you're going to get behind that one horse that you got. And right now, that one horse is Nick Ball. And I think if you keep building that popularity, hometown fights near his hometown and build that name, start building that fan base, they're going to follow you wherever you go, whether it's Riyadh or anywhere else in the world.
I mean, I guess, but you got to do that for a full year. You're going to give him three more title defenses.
And wait for Noah
on the hope that Inoue wants to fight him. I don't think it makes any sense. I think you got to get at least one of those other title holders to come over to the UK, go over to Riyadh, and fight you in a unification fight. That is the only, to me, pathway for Nick Ball. All right, Filip Hrgovic. Let's talk about him for a second. 2 straight wins now following the knockout loss to Danny Dubois. He wins a decision against Joe Joyce back in April. On Saturday, he defeats David Adelaide by a wide decision. I thought Hrgovic looked pretty good in this fight. His power shots were working. He was fighting at distance for most of the fight. In the second half, when he had the fight seemingly in the bag, I thought he got way too reckless. Like he was engaging with Adelaide, particularly in the 8th round, where he drops Adelaide and he just starts go to war with the guy. Like you had the fight in the bag if you're Hrgovic. And so he made some questionable strategic decisions, I thought, during that fight. But he looks pretty good. And that's the second straight solid win on the resume of Filip Hrgovic. What did you think of Hrgovic's performance? And does this erase kind of the stink of that loss to Dubois?
No, it hasn't fully erased that stink. There's still a hint of that bad smell because yes, he has 2 unanimous decision wins, but if he would have came back and started knocking the guys out, that would have been a different story. But I think he needs one more fight. I think one more fight to totally erase that stench that you're talking about because Hrgovic still looks suspect. Yes, he controlled, but he was getting hit with big shots, and he went to war at times. And if you're going to war with fighters that are landing big shots against you, you can't be doing that against the big dogs. So I think Hrgovic at 33 years old, his time is ticking very fast, and I think his ceiling is closing in on him because he already has 1 loss. If he didn't look all that great this fight, even though he did control it. He was in there with a cagey fighter, but I expected more from him. So I think Filip Hrgovic needs one more statement win. Maybe not another unanimous decision. These are heavyweights. You should be knocking fighters out. I think Hrgovic, if he comes back and knocks out somebody in maybe in the next 5-6 months, then he's back to cracking the top 10 and can demand a big fight.
Yeah, good win. Adelaide is a good fighter, not an elite guy. But I agree with you. I don't think that this puts Hrgovic back on that level that a lot of people thought he was destined for before the loss against Danny Dubois. I think he needs probably 2 more wins at Adelaide level or better to get there. I don't know where he's going to look next. I mean, Hrgovic is the kind of guy that has to either fight in Saudi Arabia, where he's fought 4 of his last 6 times, or go on the road and fight in some place like England where he fought Joe Joyce. He just doesn't have a fan base anywhere else. He's got to go to somebody's hometown or hope that Turki Al-Sheikh continues to like him as a fighter and continues to put him on some of these fights. But he's another guy that you can toss into that pile of good but not great heavyweights. Maybe you put him in with the loser of the Jarrell Miller-Michael Hunter fight, or something along those lines. See if Andy Ruiz is interested in boxing again, though we haven't heard much from him in a while. I think you got to put him in the mix with another one of those B-level guys, see if he can look impressive before we start talking about him on a high level. I'll tell you what concerns me, though, about Hrgovic, Sergio, is that he continues to cut very, very easily. Like his fight with Danny Dubois was stopped because he had cuts above both eyes. His win over Joe Joyce, he had a cut over his left eye. This fight against Adelaide, a cut over his right eye. And that cut, Sergio, was caused by a jab. Like, that wasn't some big power shot or a headbutt. He got clipped with a jab by David Adelaide. So when you see a guy that is cut in all three of his last fights, his last 3 fights, in around the same area, an area that, as you well know, does not heal. That doesn't heal. That just builds up with scar tissue and is just ripe to get reopened the next time that you fight. That would worry me. I thought that, look, credit to Hrgovic's team, Abel Sanchez and the doctor, the cut man they had in the corner, they took care of that. That looked like a nasty cut initially. That was a big, wide cut that they were able to slow down and get Hrgovic to be able to deal with it for, the last 7-8 rounds of that fight. But that's the kind of problem, Sergio, that I think is going to plague Hrgovic as his career moves forward, because that is not something that is going to get better. You think that's going to be a problem for him?
Man, you're looking at a human scar tissue.
I'm aware.
In the flesh right here. I had been cut almost a dozen times, and I would say 90% of them were not punches, headbutts, elbows, or whatever it is. Once that scar tissue sets in, it takes a little bit of trauma. It doesn't take a punch, just any kind of little headbutt, any kind of little side of the glove. It doesn't have to be a big punch. Everyone thinks it has to be a big punch to reopen a cut. It could be a slicing, glancing shot, because that tissue is it's what's that one welding quote? I think it's by Hemingway, that if you weld something together, it's going to be strong where you weld it, but it's going to be weak on the opposite part of where you weld it. That's how it is when you get a cut. When you get a cut on an eyebrow, that cut's going to actually heal well, but around it's going to be weak now. So you're going to get new cuts. That's what happens when you start getting cut. You're not reopening the same cut. Everyone thinks you're reopening. Sometimes it is, but you're getting little small traumas around that old cut, because that part that you cut is not as strong anymore. And that's what happened to me. That's why I have no eyebrows, because every single part of that cut that I had, I kept opening little cuts around it. And, around my forehead and everywhere else, but they're all headbutts. I think that's just going to plague fighters like him and many others. There's fighters that get plagued by cuts, and it hinders their career. If it's not hand injuries, it's cuts, but you're always going to be fighting something. You're always going to be swimming upstream with injuries when it comes to professional boxing. And once you have one nagging injury, whether it's a cut or a hand injury, a rib injury, or whatever it is, it's going to plague you your entire career. And you just got to box around it. You got to try to adapt around it and fight a new fighting style if you're going to extend your career.
It's going to be hard for him to find a new fighting style, Sergio, at 33 years old and pretty committed to the style that he fights. Yeah, he has made some trainer changes the last few years, but I don't think he's going to evolve. And I'm not even sure it would matter, only because when I went back and watched the replay of that cut being formed, a simple jab that caught him just above the right eye that opened that cut up. So that is something that's going to be, he's going to have to deal with as his career goes forward. But to just kind of put a button on it, like I said, he is always going to be beholden to what the Saudis want, because he's not fighting elsewhere. He can't fight in the U.S. and draw a crowd. There's only so many guys he can fight over in the UK. But if the Saudis want him back, well, there are some pretty interesting options. Go down the rankings. Filip Hrgovic is ranked number 2 by the WBO right now, behind ITAUMA and I guess 3, really, because Parker's the interim guy. But you could do, say, a rematch with Jay Zhang. That could be interesting. That fight was pretty good over in Saudi a couple of years ago. Lawrence Okoli, ranked number 4 at heavyweight. Jaron Ennis, ranked number 6 at heavyweight. Go down the list. Efe Ajagba, ranked number 12. I don't even see Martin Bakole on this list, but that would be an interesting fight too. Like, there are some names out there you could fight at heavyweight. It's just going to depend on, what Turki Al-Sheikh and what the Saudi officials want to do with him, because he is totally, totally beholden to whatever they want to do. Last one on the undercard, Raymond Ford, former 126-pound champion. He gets a win. 3rd win in a row at 130 pounds. He defeats Abraham Nova. Competitive fight, kind of a fun fight. Nova was a late replacement for Anthony Kakachi. Raymond Ford missed the weight by about half a pound. Had to pay a little bit of a penalty to Nova. Not as impressive, Sergio, as his previous 2 wins at 130. You go back to the last fight against Thomas Matisse. Even though he didn't knock out Matisse, he dominated Matisse. And that was a fun fight to watch. This one, Ray was good in spurts, but he was also hit a bunch by Nova. who is really well past his best days. This is a guy that challenged for a title at 130, but is not considered on the level that Raymond Ford is considered on. So just like Nick Ball, I kind of walked away from this fight less than impressed with Raymond Ford. What did you think?
I always allowed a fight like that. I mean, he won Fighter of the Year just last year. He's been in exciting fights
Fight of the year, not fight.
Fight of the, okay, Fight of the Year. There you go. He's been impressive, even in decision victories. He's impressive. Even in that hiccup that he had against Nick Ball, where he came up short, he was exciting. So look, he's an exciting fighter, Ray Ford. Now he's fighting at a more natural weight division at 130. I think Ford's going to come around nicely. He was on the front foot. He wasn't out trying to outbox and outmove, a fighter like Nova. Nova was a little cagier and tougher and stronger than expected. So you had to take your time with a fighter like Nova. But yeah, it was a lukewarm type performance. But you're bound to have one of those when you're looking red hot, like Raymond Ford. So I'll give him this. Give me. I just think his next fight should be special. He still looked fast. He controlled the tempo. He kept the fight in the middle of the ring. He never let Nova have any moments of success. And then when he did get hit with something, he wouldn't let him get hit with 2 or 3 punches. So Raymond Ford I wouldn't say he had his hands full, but he had to be careful throwing combinations against a fighter like Nova. Nova was cagier than I thought. So I think we got to start giving a little bit more credit to Nova, which we didn't when we predicted this fight, but we did say it was going to be a decision.
Yeah.
So I think we got that right, and I think Ray Ford actually picked something up in that fight. I think he just stay active and get in another fight before the year's over.
Yeah, he won 7-3 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. One of them had it 6-4, so he won a clean decision. It just wasn't as impressive. And I had a couple of thoughts after the fight. One, I understand the money is great. I don't get the sense that Ray enjoys these trips to Saudi Arabia. I mean, he even told me in an interview in New York, was it the Hitchens fight, that he goes because there's money in it and there's opportunity in it. So you take that. But I think he's just a little bit different when he's fighting stateside than when he's fighting over in Saudi Arabia.
That's going to be the case for the fighters and the commentators. All of us have to take that long haul over there. But
let me bring this to you, because I thought this was interesting. Like, Ray Ford was on the show last week, and I did that interview on the Friday before last weekend. So I did the interview about, I want to say 8 days before Ray's fight. He was still in the U.S. at that point. He was flying on the Saturday, so he was flying 7 days before. You and I have done that trip a lot. Done it from the East Coast, done it from the West Coast. Either way, when we fly in on Sunday night, Monday morning, whatever it may be, I am not physically right until like Wednesday or Thursday. And I'm just commentating, man. I'm just out there. I'm just out there doing interviews.
Listen, I'm with you. And I'm a guy that values sleep. I mean, I need 10 hours plus. I can only imagine for fighters who are on a strict schedule, not only with their diet, but their training, and to be, abroad like that, having it's a lot of things you have to be accustomed to. But look, you go over there because that's where the big fights are. That's where the big money is. And you go where the work is. So if you're going to be an entertainer, you got to go where the show is. All right. So this isn't just the boxing business, it's the show business. So if you want those big paydays, you want the big mega card, you want to be all eyes on you, then you're going to have to do that. And fighters need to adapt. And the only thing that brings a little bit of comfort to these world championship caliber fighters is saying, well, I'm not the only one. My opponent has to take that long haul as well. So he's going to be fighting a guy that has to acclimate just like you do. So that's how you feel better about flying 15, 16 hours across the world to actually perform.
Yeah, and I'm sure, even though, fighters train the way they train, I'm sure Raymond Ford looked at Abraham Nova as being a lesser opponent than Anthony Kakachi would have been. Anthony Kakachi was coming into that fight white hot, was beating up on all the 130, 135s across the UK. There was a reason to get motivated for a fight like that. You bring in Abraham Nova, who had, been on a bit of a skid, bounced back.
How late of a replacement was he, by the way?
It was a few weeks. It wasn't like, fight week.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well. I mean, if it was just like a week, then I could understand, maybe even 2 weeks, then I could understand why Ford didn't look as sharp. But if he had more than 2 weeks to prepare from,
he had more than 2 weeks. Yeah, he had more than 2
then
weeks.
that wasn't an excuse.
Like, he got the win. The point though for me, and you brought this up, like, his next fight's got to be a big one, and to me, his next fight's got to be Sugar Nunez. Like, I don't like the fact that this wasn't a Sugar Nunez fight befuddles me. Sugar Nunez is going to be back in Mexico in September, in Sinaloa, no less. Fighting a title defense. You're not going. You're not going down there. That's
No,
already
that's
been
where
discussed.
that's where my mother was born.
Okay, I thought you were fist bumping because you get to go and you'll go anywhere. I've made this joke before.
Great seafood, great music, beautiful people.
This is like not to get too into our text exchanges here, but like Sergio will, whenever there's like a fight announced, Sergio will text me and ask me where he thinks that fight's going to be. And then he'll offer his suggestions. Like, it would be a great place? Vegas. Vegas would be a great place for a fight like that. Or how about New York? He has no real insights into why it's going to be a good place. He just wants to go to Vegas or go to New York. It's not about the proximity. So
and now
I've started to respond to you.
Texas is my third, because Texas has it's so big, but Frisco is a great place to have a fight. So yeah, Sinaloa could be next, Chris Mannix.
I've started to respond to you with locations that are as close to your home as humanly possible. Like I think I said last time, Chino is where they're planning on holding the Vergil Ortiz fight. Anaheim, maybe, where they're planning on holding the Vergil Ortiz fight. I'm just going to keep pushing these close locations just because you don't really care. But you'd also you would go to Moscow to do a fight if that got you out of the state. You would go to Kabul to do a fight if that got you out of the state. You'll go anywhere. It doesn't really matter to you. But
I am a traveler, not a tourist, Chris Mannix. So I like traveling.
You're a little bit of a tourist.
That's part of being a Sagittarius.
You're a little bit of a tourist.
Chasing that arrow. That's part of being always. What's that one quote? Always looking, but never finding. Okay, that's my life, Chris Mannix.
Yeah. Actually, I buy that. I will buy that as being your life. The Ray Ford Sugar Nunez fight, though, needs to happen. Both of these guys are represented by Matchroom. I'm sure both of them would love to do some kind of unification fights. Ray Ford's been going back and forth with Shaki Foster on social media. Emmanuel Navarrete, because Top Rank right now is having some difficulty securing a network deal. Maybe he's available. If those fights can happen, great. More power to him. But the Nunez fight's right there. And you've got Nunez fighting, staying busy in September. Ray Ford just fighting. Ray Ford is not one of those guys looking to duck Sugar Nunez. He's been calling him out over and over again. And he told me last week that the only reason that he took this fight in Saudi is because he was told that Sugar Nunez wouldn't fight him for 12 to 16 months, which is an astonishing amount of time. Like why we're talking about a year and a half being the time frame to get Ray Ford against Sugar Nunez, I don't know. But that has to be the fight next. December, January, February, first quarter of 2026. I don't want to see either one of these guys in another fight unless they're fighting each other.
I agree. I think that's the fight to make. I think Shaki Foster is going to be a tricky fight. I don't think it'll be a fan-friendly fight between two, boxers. So I think Ford and Nunez has huge power, high knockout ratio. And if that fight's in Mexico, which I think if they pay him right, Ray Ford would actually go.
He's not going to Mexico. That's a fight you do in Texas, probably. You can still draw the same Mexican fans.
I'm fine with Texas. I'm fine with Texas, especially Frisco, like I just mentioned. I'm fine with Texas, but it has to be, near the border right there for Nunez to feel, comfortable and both of them can feel at home. That's a fight to make. Boxer versus puncher on a championship level. It'll be exciting for the fans. It could be on this platform. It could be an exciting fight, man. I think that's the fight to make. Well, Shaki Foster is exciting, but that's more of a trickier scientific fight. If you want explosive,
I think Navarrete is exciting. Navarrete's a fun fight.
He didn't look that good in his last fight.
It's still fun.
Navarrete's on the way out. I think he brings name recognition, name value, but that's another guy that's prone to cuts. That's another guy that is actually...
Yeah, but if you're Ray Ford, don't you want name recognition? Don't you want name value? You're looking to get a scalp. If you can get the chance to fight a Navarrete, you jump at that. I don't know what's happening with Navarrete and your boy, Charlie Suarez, but if he's available, I would put Ray Ford in with Navarrete right away.
If they overturn that Charlie Suarez decision, you're still going to bow at my feet.
They didn't overturn the decision. I think they declared it a no contest.
Maybe they're going to take it to a higher court.
What is the higher court? You can't go to the Supreme Court over a boxing decision.
I don't know. Maybe they can recant the judgment, but either way, you owe me a bow.
I don't owe you a bow. You can't recant the judgment. It is what it is. It's done. Supposedly, they were going to run that thing back, but I don't know what's going to happen at this point. Navarrete went up moving up, too. He's had some problems getting to 130 pounds. I don't know the future there. But Ray Ford, Sugar Nunez, Matchroom, Make it happen. It's not a super expensive fight. We've seen that Ray Ford can be in exciting fights against come-forward opponents. Just look at that Kolmatov fight. Kolmatov was an avoided guy. He was a heavy-handed guy, and Ray Ford knocked him out. I think Sugar Nunez is a big puncher, Sergio, but he won his title. His title-winning fight was a decision. So, maybe some of it has to do with matchmaking, some of the guys he's been fighting. Either way, Ray Ford versus Nunez is the right fight to make. Last thing, and this is a segue to the right fight to make conversation. There was a lot of back and forth over the last few days between Vergil Ortiz and Xander Zayas. Xander Zayas is the WBO 154-pound champion, won his fight in New York earlier, last month. And he has been looking for a fight. Vergil Ortiz went on social media and said, "My team made you an offer. You have until the end of day to accept it." Xander Zayas then released the email between Eric Gomez and Carl Moretti of Top Rank that showed that it wasn't exactly an offer. It was a quasi-offer, but it was a little light on the details. And ultimately, no deal was consummated between these two guys. I'm not going to play the blame game here because I think both sides have a hill to stand on in these arguments. But I'll put it to you this way. This was probably a deal that Xander Zayas could have made if he really wanted it. Is it a mistake for Xander Zayas to not have pushed for that fight against Vergil Ortiz?
No, he's a newly minted young champion at 22 years old. He has all the time and now a title on his side. It's Vergil Ortiz, who's had issues with sickness, with fallen fights, who's now 27 years old and hasn't won a world title. This kid should have been a world champion, years ago. They moved him perfectly. He's an exciting fighter. He puts butts in seats, but I wouldn't go as far as call him unreliable because he's reliable. He shows up, he's gonna knock someone out. But at 154, that's another question. This kid, man, Zayas, should be going back to his hometown. He should be going to Puerto Rico like he promised his mother and his fans. He just won a world title. He's young, he's fresh, he's good looking, he says all the right things. He's bilingual like you're not. And now he has a championship, man. You go to Puerto Rico and you defend that championship. You build that name, you build that fan base. It's one of the best fan bases in boxing aside from the UK and the Americans. Build that fan base, man. You have time on your side. That's what you do if you're Xander Zayas. And shame on whoever decided to put that email out like that, man. You don't do that in business.
That was Zayas. I
know it is. So
Twitter account.
Look, I praise them. Now let me scold that young kid. Let me admonish the young kid. You don't do that, man. Because he has everything from the looks and the hooks and the title now and the undefeated record. He has money to be made. You don't do that, man, because then you can't be trusted in business. Then you can't be trusted to do anything, man. That was a rookie move by this new generation that posts a bunch of nonsense like that. That was a rookie move, and you never do that, man. You don't post sparring sessions if you're a professional fighter, especially a champion, and private messages, especially against presidents of a promotion that you might be fighting for. It's a terrible look, man. So that shame on you on that one, but congratulations on becoming one of the youngest champions in boxing. And I'm a fan of Xander Zayas. I just hope he makes the right decisions moving forward.
Yeah, I think Zayas and his team have the same mindset that you do. I think they'd like to take him to Puerto Rico for his next fight and do it at a relatively low level. They'd still have to take on a top 10, top 15 guy in the WBO, but they want it to be a fight that he's fairly heavily favored in. They want to give him a title defense before, he goes off and fights somebody else. The question is, who is going to pay for a Xander Zayas title defense against some nobody?
Hey, look, Top Rank has the best matchmakers in boxing for a long time. They moved this kid into this position right now. So I'm sure they're going to dig up somebody that makes sense.
I get that. No. I'm not saying they won't find somebody that makes sense for Xander Zayas, but Top Rank doesn't have a TV deal as we speak. Like, they don't have an ESPN backing them anymore. There have been some chatter that come October, they will have some sort of television deal. That's the latest information that I've been getting, but right now they don't. So Xander Zayas is kind of twisting in the wind, hoping that they get a TV deal or hoping that somebody else comes to the table and agrees to pay for that type of fight. And I have a theory on that, and I'm going to get to that in just a minute. For Vergil Ortiz, it's been kind of a whirlwind last few days. Like, there were substantial negotiations for Vergil to face Keith Thurman in his next fight. Like, Keith Thurman ultimately has decided to take on Sebastian Fundora. I don't think that deal is papered yet, but there seems to be an agreement on that fight taking place. Those two have been talked about fighting for a little bit of a while now. So Thurman's now going the direction of Fundora, and Vergil kind of was left looking around. And the Zayas, I think the Zayas offer was real. I think while the email was light on details, I think it said like 50-50 split, would happen in December. At least that's what I was told. It happened on pay-per-view, which I don't know about that, but it was supposed to happen on pay-per-view. So, that it was light on details, but I do think that it could have been put together to make all sides ultimately happy. But
when you're a champion and you hold that world title, I mean, you have momentum and you have what you need to get the terms on your side. So I believe in that email. It says California or Nevada. Those are neutral states for both fighters. And I just think 50-50 doesn't get better for that. If you're the champion, you would think you would want at least 55-45 or 60-40, 50-50. So everything was there for that fight to be made, and something happened behind the scenes that we don't know about. Even you.
No, I do know about it. I know exactly what it is. It's exactly what I said. Like, Xander Zayas and his team want an easier fight in Puerto Rico. Simple as that. Okay, well, like, that's what they want. So now Vergil is turning to Erickson Lubin. And while I was told that fight isn't officially papered just yet, they don't anticipate it being that difficult to finalize. Erickson Lubin was deep in discussions with Bakram Mursalayev to fight him for his title. This is stop with the Mursalayev stuff. Like, I'm not trying to knock Mursalayev, but God, like, he's riding the wave of a Tim Tszyu win, Sergio. I think he's a good fighter. I don't think he's some boogeyman. Like, he knocked out Tim Tszyu. Turns out that's not that hard to do, as we just saw.
I don't know, man. If you say that name,
he's fine. But like, I'm not.
The hackles behind my neck raised like a cat. No, he doesn't.
Man, stop. Lubin walking away from the title fight, strictly financial. Like, the offer to fight Vergil Ortiz, I was told, is substantially more than the offer to fight Bakram Mursalayev. It's prize fighting ultimately. Lubin taking more money, and Lubin's a good fighter. We've known Lubin. He's been in some tough fights. He had that loss to Fundora. He's on a 3-fight winning streak since then. He's one of those guys, Sergio. He doesn't just talk the talk. He walks the walk. Like, look at his resume. He has fought some good guys, in his career. Fought Fundora, lost. Before that, fought Jermell Charlo, lost. The guys he's beaten: Terrell Gaucher, Jason Rosario, Luis Arias, Jesus Ramos. That was a controversial fight, but he got the win. Ardrell Holmes, who was undefeated at that time. Like, he's beaten some. He's fighting all the guys that you got to fight. So I think that's a tough fight for Vergil, but it's probably the next best thing that's out there if nothing else was available. What do you think?
Yeah, I mentioned Hammer Erickson Lubin. I would think last year as an opponent for Vergil Ortiz, because I thought it made perfect sense stepping up to 154, a guy that's going to meet you in the center of the ring. That fight will not go the distance. It'll be fan friendly, and Lubin is a southpaw. So you want to see how Vergil's going to react with a power puncher that's aggressive coming from that left-handed stance. And if you put in a neutral ground where Ortiz is not going to have the favoritism of the judges, then Lubin has a chance, man. I mean, this is the type of fight where Lubin would have a chance. I would love to see that fight. He's a natural super welterweight at 154. I would want to see how Ortiz is going to react when he gets chin checked by a big puncher in Lubin. So that's a dangerous fight that I think Vergil and Team Vergil, they're willing to fight anybody in the world. But this is a fight where it's like, okay, let's see how this kid's going to react when he gets hit with that big power. Because, everyone that faces Vergil, they go down when they feel his. How's he going to react when he gets clipped? And that Hammer Lubin's going to give him that punch to find out how he's going to react.
Well, he's been down already at 54 twice to a big puncher in Sergey Bohachuk. He bounced back with a very impressive win over Israel Madrimov. I think that was the best win of his career by a mile. So he's starting to grow into that body, and that's why I think his power is going to be more of a problem for Lubin than Lubin's power is going to be for Vergil. The next question, Sergio, with these guys is, are we now destined to get Boots against Vergil? If you look at the calendar, Boots, I think, scheduled for October 11th. Vergil, I believe, being penciled in right now for October 18th. That would seem to set up a fight between Boots and Vergil for the first quarter of 2026. And look, we know that, if Eddie Hearn is to be believed here, and I think he is because he said that so many times, like Boots Ennis has agreed to the terms to a Vergil Ortiz fight. Locked in. As Eddie Hearn says, signed. He has signed for that fight. Vergil Ortiz has not. And when I've talked to members of Team Ortiz, like I did over the last few days, that's not really their plan. That's not my understanding of where Vergil Ortiz wants to go. My understanding is that Vergil Ortiz is much more focused on a fight against Errol Spence Jr. And that may sound crazy, but the discussions that have been had behind the scenes, like Errol Spence is the one that wants to fight Vergil Ortiz. He wants to fight him in Cowboy Stadium, and he wants that to be his last fight. He wants a big fight in Texas, and he thinks Vergil Ortiz is the right guy to have it against. Now, Spence does not want to go straight into an Ortiz fight. He's been off for over 2 years now, since that loss to Terrence Crawford. But theoretically, at least in the planning stages, the plan is to get Errol Spence a fight in January or February of next year, get a shake off the rust fight at 154, and then go into an Ortiz fight in the summer of 2026. That, from the people I've talked to, Sergio, that seems to be more of where Ortiz's focus is than on finalizing this long-discussed deal with Boots Ennis.
If you remember, Vergil Ortiz was, audacious enough to be calling out Bud Crawford. He was next in line to be fighting a mega fighter like that. And then he would kind of swerve when it comes to Boots Ennis. And I understand that because he's one fight away from being the star fighter. And I think if he fights Boots, who do you think's the A-side fighter in that, Vergil or Boots?
I don't know.
Tricky one, right? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. Yeah,
I'd probably say Boots only because he's the unified champion. Then I think he's just as
maybe, but I think depending where you put that fight, Vergil will have more fans. But
it would be in Vegas. It would be a Vegas fight. They'd either way. Okay, well, Boots isn't going to Texas, and Vergil's not going to Philadelphia.
All right, well, if that's the case, Vergil's going to be the A side in Las Vegas. It's going to be
could be like it's one of those things, Sergio, where it's like, all right, you're the A side, your name goes first, I walk out second. Like,
I get it. As long as they both get A side money, it's fine with both fighters.
They would.
Both these fighters, are on the brink of making big money, and it's a great fight. But I actually like that idea against Errol Spence because look, I'm a guy that fought, two great names, Hall of Fame names towards the end of the careers. It's good to have that on your resume. It's going to last forever. So I think if Vergil Ortiz gets a fighter like Errol Spence, who I think is going to be a future Hall of Famer in Texas, that's a mega fight. And I don't care if Errol Spence is past his prime, which he is, and you can't rely on him because of his injuries that he's had and that beatdown that Bud gave him, which we saw with our own eyes. But who cares? That's the rite of passage for young champions, young lions to face these older fighters, these old lions that have already been past their primes, that still have that name. They still have that recognition. They still have their loyal fan base and will still put butts in seats. So if I'm Vergil now, at this point of his career, he hasn't even won a world championship yet, but because of that popularity that he has with that big power and the willingness to fight anyone, anytime, put that Boots fight on pause and see if you can get that Spence fight for an all-Texas war and showdown. If you can't get that fight, then you better go to Boots, man, because that's going to be one of the best fights you can possibly make in boxing.
I think the Spence fight is what they want for all the reasons you just laid out there. I think for Boots, I think the way Eddie Hearn is thinking about the fight, he wants it to be in the U.S. He wants it to be a regular pay-per-view show in the U.S. I think Vergil's team thinks the money should be greater than that and would probably want it to be Saudi related to try to get a little bit more or a lot more money out of a fight like that. But we'll see. There's a lot of moving parts.
Hopefully His Excellency will understand this fight belongs in the States, So,
that's the thing, if whether it's, Riyadh season or not, we've seen Riyadh season ring cards in the U.S.
That's what
multiple
I'm saying.
cards. It should be. Yeah.
Here again, do one in Las Vegas, do one anywhere,
right, and
make that fight happen because big money will make that fight happen. And can you imagine the promotion to that fight? Seeing not only the fighters going at it, because Vergil's not that great on the microphone. He does all his talking in the ring. But can you imagine the guys that do the talking in Oscar De La Hoya and Eddie Hearn, a multi-city tour, with a great undercard? sells itself, man. Sign me up. So hopefully that big money, Saudi money can make it happen somewhere out this side, and it could be next or soon,
Well,
very soon.
here's the case for waiting till like December of 2026. Let's say that Golden Boy can put together this dream scenario that sees Spence get a win in January, February, and come back in the summer and fight Vergil at Cowboy Stadium. That's huge. Like that, you do that. That's a king-making moment for Vergil Ortiz, with or without a belt that's on the line. For Boots, I think there's a pathway to get that world title. The pathway includes, to bring it all back here, our old friend Xander Zayas, right? Like Xander Zayas, whoever he fights, that's not going to be a mandatory challenge. It's not. There is no mandatory right now for the WBO title. That number one spot is vacant. But sitting there, Sergio, at number 4 in the WBO rankings is Jaron Boots Ennis, the number 4 ranked fighter in the WBO rankings. Ahead of him is Josh Kelly, who there was a lot of back and forth over the last couple of days about whether or not Josh Kelly wanted that fight, and Jorge Garcia Perez, who just lost to Xander Zayas. So if Boots wins this fight on October 11th against Lima, he's going to jump into that number 1 spot. And then Matchroom can look at the WBO and say, hey, you haven't ordered a mandatory on this. We're the mandatory. Order this fight. So he can pressure Zayas to either take the fight or vacate the title and move up and weight. Like, so this could all wind up, there's a pathway here, and I hate waiting, and I understand that people want to see this fight. We've been talking about it since both guys were at 147. But, like, if Vergil goes on to fight Spence and beats him, and Boots beats Zayas to become a world champion, does that not make the fight a little bit bigger? It's kind of like this idea with Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia. Like Devin Haney, if he winds up beating Brian Norman in what's a very tough fight, and Ryan Garcia can come back and avenge his loss against Rolly Romero, doesn't the rematch against Ryan and Devin with 2 belts on the line, doesn't that become that much bigger? So look, if the Spence stuff falls apart, and I agree with you, you can't really believe that Spence is going to fight at this point. It's past 2 years since he last fought. But if he's serious about it, and if he can get that gimme in the first quarter of the year, and if they can put together a Texas fight in the middle of the year, then I think you have the potential to make Boots versus Vergil pretty damn big when you get to the end of 2026, even early 2027.
In a perfect world, but I don't see Team Xander Zayas fighting a guy like Boots. I'll be a headache.
Well, then he vacates.
Well, look, in the
title's still going to be on the line.
If everything you just laid out, as far as the becoming a mandatory and then having to vacate that fight, that belt, then it makes all the sense in the world, and that's a perfect strategy for Boots to follow. If that happens, then yes, all the stars align, and everyone gets satisfied, and we can have another big mega fight. Man, but you know how hard it is in boxing, especially for the stars to align like that? It's very difficult. So we're going to see what the next step is for the newly minted champion in Xander Zayas, and whatever his next choice is, whether it's fighting in Puerto Rico or vacating, that's where we're going to decide where
fight in Puerto Rico. It'll be a low level fight, I think, in Puerto Rico. That's my prediction. And then after that, he may be forced to make a decision about whether to fight Boots Ennis. By the way, a Boots Xander Zayas fight, that's a huge New York City fight. Like Xander has built up a fan base in New York, Puerto Rican fighter. Boots fighting out of Philly. His fans can just hop on the train. It's a 40-minute ride to get up to Madison Square Garden. Like, that's a huge New York City fight. A lot of money on the table in a fight like that. If I'm Xander, that's
do you really think Xander is going to take that fight as a newly crowned champion?
But he's going to have to vacate. Like, it's either that. Like, I'm saying he's not taking it as an optional fight, I don't believe. But if the WBO, which, Matchroom's been playing nice for the WBO. I've noticed this. Like, Matchroom did not go, bat bleep crazy when Diego Pacheco got screwed by the WBO. I think you're playing nice to a degree. And I think a product of playing nice is that you can get your guy. By the way, if Boots beats Lima, who's a top 10 guy in 3 of the 4 sanctioning bodies, if he beats Lima, he deserves that number 1 spot. He deserves to jump over Josh Kelly. He deserves to jump over Jorge Garcia. So I think that's reasonable to see him make that jump. I would love to see Boots win in what is a much tougher fight than I think people are anticipating. But see him win, get that number 1 spot, get ordered to fight, and then April, May 2026, Boots versus Zayas. Summer 2026, Vergil versus Spence. Let's get it on. End of the year. Good event. Good fights.
Crazy. Is that what you said?
Trying to cut my cursing down a little bit here on the show. So
Have you ever seen Ace Ventura?
Yeah, many times.
Guano. Remember? That was what it was called. Guano. Bat spit. Whatever you want to call it. So there you go. Get creative with your vulgar curse words there, Chris Mannix. Guano.
Well, from Ernest Hemingway to Ace Ventura, you have covered the gamut in quotes on the show, Sergio. So I applaud you for that. And we'll be back with you guys at the end of the week.